Okay, Genevieve and I are down here in the well pad orchard. We're going to get some of these trees winter pruned. First of all, we're in the middle of March, so it's a good time to do it. Still cold, no sign of swelling buds, no sign of the trees coming back to life, so it's a good time to do the winter pruning. In addition to that, it is a good time for us to take off all of those wrappers, and we're going to do that as well. We protect those trees over the winter with the wrappers on them. What I've done the last few years is when I do the winter pruning, I take the wrappers off. She's going around and doing that stuff right now, and when that's done, basically they'll have the wrappers off for the rest of the season until we go through and get them ready for winter later in the fall. Right about now, before too long, the clover is going to start greening up, the grass is going to start greening up, and rabbits and other animals that would be eating that bark should have other food to go to rather than eating this bark. So it's worked the last couple of years when I've done it this time. Although it is really cold today. I mean, it was 20 degrees last night. It's 24 degrees right now. Pretty cold, so maybe I'm wrong on this, but we will see. Props here. When we do the winter pruning, I'm also going to install a bunch of things called Twigeeze, I guess they're called. I have these neat little red braces that can go between the branches, spread the branches out a little bit. If you've been following Death by Bunjie for a while, you might remember a few years ago I had a problem with my cages, my baskets being too small because I was trying to you learn as you go with this stuff. I don't have a history doing this stuff, and we're learning as we're going, but the baskets were too small because, you know, you want to get as much as you can out of a roll of the wire caging. So I ended up, last year we went through and we increased all the baskets. These baskets should be big enough now, these cages should be big enough now so that we don't need to replace them at all. The trees, by the time they get too big for these cages, the cages are coming off. So that's kind of where we're at with that now. But because those cages were a little bit small, some of the trees, their branches started growing up instead of out. And on apple trees, you want sort of a 45-degree angle for the branches so they can support more weight in terms of fruit. They can support more weight in terms of snow that might accumulate on those branches, but also because it allows that fruit to get away from the trunk of the tree, opens up the air to the tree, opens up sunlight inside the tree, and all of that's very important when you're pruning trees. So we're going to take that into account when we're doing our winter pruning. I've done another video on winter pruning and on my strategy, my plan as far as that's concerned. Check that out. Let me know if you have any comments or suggestions or any questions. I'll answer what I can, but I'm really kind of interested in hearing if other people have a better way to do certain things. Please let me know. These little braces called Twigeeze, I bought on eBay, I think, but I'm first time using these things. They're pretty neat. They got like a little crotch on each end with a little point in it so that you can sort of stick it into the bark just a little bit, so it'll get a little bit of friction here, a little bit of traction. And that way, once it gets that purchase on the trunk and purchase on the limb, it'll push those limbs apart so you can get them to grow in different directions over the course of the season. And then, of course, take them off for the winter maybe, and we'll put them on somewhere else when they're done growing for the summer. There's no point in having the braces on then. We'll take these braces and store them over the winter and use them in different directions the following year, so we can just keep reusing them as we go along. Hopefully that will work out just fine. It's pretty exciting. And also for anybody who's interested in this, and down the road I will be interested in it, when I bought these on eBay, the guy sent me Vineeze, I guess is what they're called. He just sent me like one package of them as a sort of a bonus, I guess. But there's the same sort of thing to sort of coax your vines to grow in a certain direction. Now I would just be using zip ties probably, that's what I would do, but and I don't have any grapevines yet, but we hope to soon. I hope to someday branch out and have some grapevines once we get the apples under control, where I don't feel like I'm overwhelmed every year this time of year with apples. Then we'll branch off into the vine growing direction. So these would be really neat if you have grapevines, and down the road I'd like to try that out. So let me know if you have any experience with either one of these types of products and how that has worked. I figured I'd talk a little bit too about the overall plan that we have for the apples this spring. This is the time of year, and I mentioned this before, this is the time of year it is very easy for me to get overwhelmed with all the work that I've got to do, because you can't do anything all through February and most of March. Then all of a sudden you have to winter prune, you have to mulch the trees so you can prevent the weeds from growing, you got to get the food plots started, you're still trying to cut wood, I'm still trying to make these videos, and spring gobbler is just around the corner. I'd like to sort of plan for that as well. We've had videos with turkeys going through here. I posted those on the Facebook page. You should check that out if you haven't already. I always plug the Facebook page because I really enjoy the interaction that I have with people on there. I'm able to interact. I try to respond to all the messages. Very interesting stuff. So it's not the world's most exciting stuff probably to everybody, but if you're interested in this kind of thing, check out the Facebook page and you'll get to see trail camera pictures and stuff like that throughout the week, as well as little updates about what I do around here. When we're talking about the apple trees and what the plan is for the spring, right now what I'm going to do, of course, we're going to winter prune, we're going to get the wrappers off and get the trees, the cages all sealed back up, put the zip ties back on them to protect them from the deer. And we're going to do that now because the trees are dormant. We're also going to put these red braces on, and that way as the trees come to life, they can start growing and training themselves in the right directions. Very important. Pretty soon here we'll get to the point where we're hitting 40 degrees, not just during the day, but 40 degrees overnight. When we have 24-hour 40-degree temperature, that is my understanding, then I can spray my oils. I have an oil that I am going to use, a dormant oil, that I can spray on these trees, soak these trees good with that dormant oil, and it will suffocate many of the pests and their eggs that are getting ready to hatch and come out there and start to take apart these trees. Very important that the timing is very important on these things. You don't want to put that oil on there when it's freezing, from what I have read, but you want to put the oil on there at a time when it is 40 degrees overnight. That way it can do its job, kill those bugs, and by the time the temperatures start warming up, those bugs won't be there to come to life and to start attacking your trees. That's the plan. So I've bought a product from Bunjie that I'm going to use for that. I'm going to do one application in there while the trees are still dormant, or when they're getting into their green tip stage. Just when the very end of those buds is starting to get a little bit green on it. That's when I'm going to be applying that oil. One application, at least as far as that early application is concerned. Then when the trees get into the green tip and pre-bloom stage, no flowers out on them, nothing like that, but we're definitely seeing those buds come to life, I am going to do 2 applications of what's known as Bunjie's fruit tree spray that I found, and I have looked that all up, and I am going to apply that in 2 separate applications, at least 7 days apart. We'll be well into spring by this point, but I will do that at that time because it won't be attracting bees at that time, because there won't be any flowers or anything like that on the trees. But I'll do those 2 applications of that to kill all of the pests and further protect those trees at that time before we move into the bloom stage of the flowers. I welcome any info you have on these 2 products, and I welcome any info that you have on my timing as I've described it so far, or anything else I discussed in this video, because this is what I've done a lot of research and reading this over the winter here to figure out what I'm going to do. There are a lot of other sprays on the market, a lot of other products that you can use, and those products might be appropriate where you are. They don't appear to be appropriate here for me because last year, you might recall, I did that video where I walked through and sort of evaluated all the apples to see what kind of pests I had, what kind of problems we had here. You don't want to spray for everything, and you don't want to just keep spraying all the time. It gets expensive, can be a little bit hazardous for the environment. Too much of that washes off and gets into the water stream, water supply. If it makes its way to the creek, it can kill aquatic wildlife that lives in the creek. I certainly don't want to do that. So I want to use these sparingly, but I want to protect my apple trees at the same time. My primary problems are cedar rust and aphids and plum curculio, those 3 pests. If I can get rid of those 3, and there's occasional beetle too, but if I can get rid of those 3 pests, it will go a long way toward protecting these trees. Almost no other pests are really a problem. Now, as I get rid of those 3, I might have 3 new ones work their way in, I don't know, but we'll deal with it as we go along. You got to keep looking at these trees, from what I understand. You got to keep looking at them, keep evaluating them, keep an eye on them, and make sure that you're treating the right pests. So in that green tip and pre-bloom stage, I'll be spraying that fruit tree spray on there. And that's the two products that I will use. Now, once we get into the bloom stage or the flowers are out, I'm just going to go around and take pictures and enjoy the pictures that I take and enjoy the beautiful trees and the smell of the blossoms and the whole bit. I'm not going to do any spraying during that time. Instead, I'll be focusing on what? Food plots. I got 3 food plots, 4 food plots I got to work on here. Maybe a 4th one. I don't know. I might add another one this year. That's still up in the air. But I got a lot of food plot work to do this time of year, so I'll be working on that, of course. And then when we get the blooms falling off and all of the petals fall off those flowers, and we get past that part of the year where the bees are attracted to the trees, because we don't want to hurt the bees, because you're not going to grow apples without bees. So I'm going to wait until that time to start applying any further sprays. Now, that dormant oil will be the only other spray that I apply for the rest of the season. I'll go back to the one I made the early application of. I'll take that same product and I will spray it every couple of weeks, 10 to 14 days apart, as needed, but I'll keep an eye on them, and I will spray that throughout the growing season. Probably take a break from that around harvest season, depending on which variety of tree we're talking about, because some of them drop at different times. But I'll probably taper it off in the fall. At that point, it should have protected the trees from most of the pests and most of the problems that could arise. And then after the apples come off the trees, after we start putting the wrappers back on, I'll probably put at that time one more really good coat of that dormant oil on all the trees, so that it protects going into the winter the tree from those pests. Those pests won't find that tree an attractive place to lay their eggs or to overwinter. If I do it that way, I'm thinking next year we'll have fewer pests, but I'll still do the same schedule of application. I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about this. I've done a lot of reading on this stuff, and like I said, I do not know everything about apple trees. That is for sure. I've been reading, watching tons of YouTube videos. If you have a channel about this you want me to check out, if you posted videos, if you've done stuff on your Facebook page, you want me to see that, please share it with me. I would love to see it. I'd also welcome any comments you have about apple trees and this sort of schedule that I'm talking about here. If you have any pointers for me, I appreciate it. Professor Kent, I expect to hear from you on this one. She's got just about all of it done, so I might as well cut the video here, I guess. She's got almost all the wrappers off. Now it's time for me to go through and do the pruning. Normally, Genevieve cuts all the zip ties, opens up the cages, so I can do all the important work like pruning and all the other good stuff. And we went through here, did all that. I showed her how to prune because she'd gotten all the wrappers off. She'd already opened up all the baskets, all the cages. And I said, well, I'll show you how to prune. So I went through and I showed her how he did it and all that. And I had her do a few trees, and she's done a great job, picked it up. She loves doing it. And now she's down there finishing up the well pad series of trees here. And the joke's on me because I get to go close up all of the cages and put the zip ties back on. I said, well, I shouldn't have to do that. That's Genevieve's work. And she said, I'm pruning. So I guess I'm stuck doing the zip ties, but it's good to see that she's taken to this and really done a good job.
I don't want to change. Why can't everything stay the same? I don't want to change. Why can't everything stay the same? One day even more showed up. A whole new batch. Gotta protect my heritage. I gotta start from scratch. White trucks and cowboy hats.
It's really bright out here today, and while we're making this video today, I've got a filter called an ND filter on the camera lens to sort of bring down the levels a little bit so it's not overexposed. If you noticed in some of my recent videos, the snow, anytime you've got snow in the background, it was all white. It was overexposed. There was no picture there at all, and it looks terrible. So I've got these little ND filters that I use for that purpose, and that's why I've got one of those on there today. All it is, for anybody who's interested, they just make these little filters, that you screw on your lens. Different cameras, different lenses, going to require different sizes, but basically you can stack them up too. They make them of different darknesses, okay? They're kind of like sunglasses. Some of them are darker than others. I've got the darkest one on there so that I can keep this from getting overexposed. The other way to keep it from being overexposed, you can reduce your aperture and let in less light, but then the picture quality suffers a little bit, and I've noticed that the dual pixel autofocus doesn't like a darker image. It doesn't focus on my face quite as well if the exposure's off. The worse the exposure is, the worse the dual pixel autofocus works. In other words, if it's too dark, it doesn't pick up my face, and if it's too bright and overexposed, it won't pick up my face. And that makes sense because the computer and the camera can't see that data, can't see that image, because I'm not picking up the image because it's too either over or underexposed. So I got these on there. Hopefully that takes care of it and we got a better picture for this. All right, we're back. We've actually gone to lunch, and over lunch, Genevieve and I, because she was doing such a good job. We went through this. She went and I showed her doing some pruning. We went through all of that. I showed her while I was doing a couple of the trees, and she was doing such a good job that I had her just go ahead and prune. Now, because we only had one set of pruning shears, I went over to Tractor Supply over lunch and we picked up a matching set, one for Genevieve and one for me. Yay. Okay. That way we can each prune though. So I'm gonna turn her loose. We've got the well pad orchard is done. We are now moving on to the main orchard. This is the first group of trees, the largest, most mature group of trees that we've had. We're 12 trees in here. I think we're down to 10, but this spring we will know for sure how many we have that have survived. We had some problems last year. That's why we're working on that spraying. But she will prune some while I prune some, and that will be a good project for her, a good way to go through and do them. And we'll see how we make out. It'll actually speed up the process of getting it done. I also wanted to point out too that bonide that I talked about, the sprays I'm going to be using throughout the season here, you can go on their website and print out the labels. You don't have to just read the little label that's on the bottle. You can just print them out, write all over them. I've gone through and highlighted the spots I think that are going to be good for, relevant to what I'm doing, useful for what we're doing here, so that you can sort of digest that information a little bit better. The internet has so much information on it that there's just no end to what we can do to do a really good job and learn all this stuff and take on these projects. I feel pretty confident going forward into the spring here with the spraying, with what I know about the spraying, and I think we'll be able to do a good job. So, enough talking. I just wanted to point that out, that you can find that stuff, and those resources do exist online. But enough talking. Let's get back to our pruning. Well, we've got some dead trees. This is tree number 11. I'll put it on the screen which one this is. If I remember right, this was the red gala, and I'm concerned, saddened that it's dead, but I could probably pull it right out of here. Genevieve was unable to pull it out, but I could probably pull it right out of here. The stump appears to be rotted right down to the stump, the trunk does. So we knew we were having troubles with that one last year. You'll remember we had problems with it. We took off all the apples early in the season so that we'd give it a little more energy maybe, but there was something going on with this tree, I think probably underground, and it did not make it. We put the little Twigeeze on all the trees where we needed to put them. We've used all of them up. I'm going to order more for the last of the 3 orchards, and we'll put them in there as well. The other trees look really good. We lost 2 for sure. There are 2 dead ones, but I'll put them on the screen just in case you're interested. I have a little map that I can look at. It's tree number 2 and tree number 11 are dead for sure. Tree number 4 in this orchard is Goldie, the Golden Delicious. We did not prune it, but we didn't pull it out or anything like that. It looks like it might survive. I don't know. We'll see if it gets leaves on it this year. But when I cut it, it was green. When you cut off the limb, it was green, just not real healthy looking. So it's a little dried out. I don't think it's going to live. I don't think it'll make it. There's 2 apricot trees here, or apricot, depending on how you pronounce it. There are 2 of those trees here, and they're looking okay. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever get apricots or whatever, but we'll see. You know, can't hurt to try. So the trees are doing well, and they are both replaced trees. Both of those trees died earlier, and you know, I planted them back in like 2010. They died after a couple of years. We replaced them and they seem to be doing well now. So that's an update on the orchards, and hopefully this process, we're done with this for now. Genevieve and I got 2 other projects we want to do. This is beautiful weather. I could just about take my coat off. We're out here and it's like, it was 20 degrees this morning, I think a high of 30, 34, something like that today. But blue sky, there isn't a cloud in the sky. Sun is out. The sun's very bright. It was a little difficult when you're looking up in a lot of those different trees and stuff. When you're looking up to try and pick your leader, we were looking right at the sun. So it was difficult to do that, but it's just a gorgeous day. Can't pick a better day for this. 2 other projects, we're gonna go around and clean out all of the bird houses. You wanna do that in March so that the nesting birds, when they come back, they can have nice clean nesting boxes that are nice, safely secured. We'll check them out, make sure they're all safe, and hopefully get some, love to see some bluebirds. That'd be kind of neat. But hopefully it's, you know, the new birds are moving into the area here soon, so now's the time of year to clean out those nesting boxes to get ready for the nests so that they can lay their eggs and all that good stuff. So we'll do that today, and there is a hydrangea up there that we're going to prune back real quick and get that done as well. So those are the 2 last projects for the day, and then Genevieve can have the rest of the day off. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you will check out the Facebook page, and also, very important, make sure you subscribe here on Death by Bunjie so that you can catch future videos. And until next time, all hail Bunjie! And then, after all the apples come off the trees, after the apples come off the trees, after we pull all of the